Hi everybody, thanks for watching Nibbles and Flicks. I'm your host, Jeff Freed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Help us grow our channel up to 1,000 subscribers. And in this video, we're going to talk about the movie Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. IMF agents Ethan Hunt and Grace are in pursuit of Gabrielle, an agent previously working on artificial intelligence known as the Entity. This is a sequel film from Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. The movie is starring Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, Yassine Morales as Gabrielle, and the movie is directed by Christopher McQuarrie. This is the 8th and possibly the final film of the Mission Impossible films. I want to say that Dead Reckoning was not my favorite film of the franchise. It still was a good film, but it wasn't peak Mission Impossible films. And for me, honestly, Ghost Protocol, Rogue Nation, and Fallout were my favorite Mission Impossible films. So I was kind of hoping that this film can actually pick up the slack that Dead Reckoning was. It was just how the movie was ended, which kind of was not really that good, and also it didn't perform well in the box office. So I was kind of hoping this film will actually pick up the pace to everything, where it would go back to peak level when it came to Fallout or Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol. Just hoping that the film ends the franchise on a high note. Watch our videos before. We usually do it 3 segments where we do the good, the bad, and our final verdict. And let's get into this review. The bad. So this film starts off really slow. It does start with an action piece, but it's real short, and it gets to a point where it's a lot of dialogue and there's a lot of characters talking, a lot of flashbacks, a lot of setting up of what will happen in the movie, what might happen in the movie, and they use dialogue to basically move the plot device of the film. It's basically a little too much exposition for me, only because I felt like, you're not really there for that. Yes, you need some type of conversations and you need characters talking to let you know what's going on, but it got to a point where they use dialogue to actually just trying to explain what's going to happen rather than showing you. I felt like that was kind of the downfall of this film. And also they use flashbacks from using other characters they brought from the past 7 films to kind of like bring everything together, rather than just like having the movie doing itself and have like surprise pop-ups. They actually do things where they show you a flashback and then they'll show that character right away, and you're like, man, you took away that moment. Maybe it would have worked out if they were going that route, is not showing it in the flashback. But they try to piece a lot from the 7 films into this film, into this one big thing. I'm not sure why they went that way. It does get to a point when the film does get better, and that's when you get to the submarine, and I'll talk about a little more of that in the good. But it's kind of like a light. Basically it was like a light just flicked on and it became a Mission Impossible movie, and I felt like that's when the movie picked up and became what we actually paid money to see. And then from then on to the end of the film, it becomes a very fantastic film. There's a lot of action, a lot of set pieces, a lot of things that you want to see. They push the action and actually showing you what's going on to push the plot along, and that made the movie more enjoyable. It was just like the first hour and a half, they just basically just lull you to sleep, and hopefully you were still up by the time you get to the submarine part, because that's when things pick up in the film. And another thing that I didn't like, it was just like I said before in the beginning of the film, the movie is very long. It's about 2 hours and 49 minutes or 45 minutes. Felt like they could have cut down 20 to 30 minutes of the film. Most of that's in the first half of the film. Like I said before, when you get to the second half of the film, that's when things pick up. I feel like that they could have chewed things off, but I guess they tried their best. Chris McQuarrie was basically saying that he was trying to chop it down even more, but you just couldn't, because the more he chopped down, the more he was losing the aspects of the story, the meat of the story. And it could be a lot of things that can happen with this film. And like, you have to remember, this film was being shot right after the COVID was over, and then you had the writer strike, so how long that took to get everybody back. So who knows what the mind frame that the writers were at the time when the writer strike begun, and where it was at the end. But you can kind of tell that they when they got back to filming the film, they were like, okay, maybe we don't like this. It seemed like they kind of tried to fix things by using the stunts in the second half of the film that kind of, gel everything together. Not saying it was completely sloppy, but it was very, very junky, very, very coherent at all. And it came to the point where it was, some spots were very messy. Started writing before the writer's strike, had to stop. Then, months later down the line, they come back, they have a different mind frame, because when you start writing something, you trying to get it all at once, and then you got to stop. Then for however long months it was for a writer's strike, I forgot how long it was, but you got to come back to that same script to write again. Your mindset's going to be totally different. So I feel like that's was something that kind of hurt the film, but it's not to the point where it made the film horrible. Like I said, I'm not trying to say this movie was bad. It was just not as meeting the peak level of the films previously in this franchise that made Mission Impossible what it is. Things that I felt was also negative was the villain of this film, and also he was the villain of the previous film, Dead Reckoning, and that's Gabriel, who's played by Isai Morales, who is a fantastic actor. I'm really not sure why they're written this villain like this way. I know Mission Impossible villains has not always been someone that we can say was the best villain of all time in cinematic history, but they've always been pretty sadistic to the point where we're like, yo, Ethan has to get this person because this person is ridiculous. But Gabriel came off as a very cartoonish, mustache twirling villain, basically egging on Ethan to come get him, laughing at him. This character is in the process of trying to take over the entity so he can take over the world. Should be a more like sadistic character to where you like in fear of this person getting a hold of this program, this AI program, and try to take over the world, because he actually does have the capability of doing that because the relationship he has with the entity. And I felt like they would have written him more sadistic, more evil, more just terrifying than all the suspense and intense of Ethan trying to stop him would have felt better. Even a way the thing that happens at the end of the film was very cartoonish as well, and the audience were laughing in my theater, and I'm like, well, hey, this is what happens when you have a cartoonish villain. We don't really take him seriously, which we should, because the situation is going on in this film is horrifying if it ever happened. But it's just to the point where, unfortunately, the last two films, they made him this character, and I was actually hoping they would have made him more sadistic in this film, but they didn't. But what can you do? You're there to watch Tom Cruise do crazy stunts, watch the action, and have some fun and eat some good snacks. So what can I say? The one thing I can always say is Tom Cruise always brings his heart and soul in this film. When it comes to all the Mission Impossible films, it just feels like he just pours everything into it. When it comes to the stunts, the acting, everything involved, he loves his character, and you can tell every time he plays him. It's just something that I just can't wait to see when a Mission Impossible movie comes out. And everybody else too did a great job. Like you kind of expect things to be a certain way when these movies come out, and what you're getting for each character, and I felt like they did an amazing job when it comes to playing their character. As always, characters are interesting. You want to know what's going on with them. You want to see when they're in crazy situations, how they're going to get out of it. And it is something that this grew out throughout the 8 films, to where you get to the point where you want to see how they finish, you want to see how their story ends, and it makes it very interesting to see what happens to these characters. The cinematography of this film was absolutely amazing. The certain shots they were doing, especially with the stunts with Tom Cruise, I felt like, just when it comes to creative cinematography, they just figure out different ways just to make it look better and better in each film. It's beautifully shot. There's parts where I'm just like amazed how they got shots. There's a scene in a submarine and it's underwater, and I'm just sitting there like, how did they get the shot? Like, what did they have to do just to get the camera prepped so to actually take these shots? And the same thing when Tom Cruise is on the plane, which we saw in the trailer. Both of those stunts are in the trailer, and they're basically at the high peak of this film. It's just how did they actually like create those? And I saw some commercial ads on YouTube and somewhere else that actually show the behind the scenes, actually how they did this and how they did these shots while Tom Cruise was doing his stunts, and it's absolutely remarkable how they do this. And just give kudos to everybody behind the scenes and everybody behind the camera, just do an amazing job, and they always do well in these franchises, and it's just great to see that, you know, the craftsmanship of cinematography in these films are just absolutely amazing. It makes the reason why you want to go see these films. Like I said in The Bad, the movie doesn't really pick up until like the second half of the film, and that's when all the action pieces come in place. You get the action, you get the stunts by Tom Cruise in a submarine. That's basically when the movie picks up and actually becomes a Mission Impossible movie, and you kind of see it too. Kind of like what I said in The Bad, it's like a light switch. It like turns into a Mission Impossible movie just out of nowhere when he gets to the submarine, and just the action pieces, what he does in the submarine when he's fighting some people in the submarine, and what he has to do out of the submarine underwater was just absolutely fantastic. And it was just like the crazy action stunts. This movie does a great job, and all these movies in this franchise have done this, is keep you on your toes. The intense, the suspense, all that stuff is always builds up and builds up and builds up, and gets to a point where you're on the edge of your seat because you really don't know what's going to happen, because Ethan's putting himself in these crazy situations. You just wonder how the 6-year-old man Tom Cruise is doing this stuff, and you know, you're thinking like a 20-year-old, you know, probably should be doing this, or a 30-year-old, but not a 60-year-old man who's you know, jumping on airplanes and putting himself under immense pressure underwater. Is completely insane. But Tom Cruise does all the time. He's just a fantastic actor. He's probably one of the last action stars in Hollywood right now. And the airplane scene, what he's seen in the trailer, I mean, everything he does in there is absolutely great. And like I said, it builds tension because you just hoping this guy doesn't fall off. There's times when you know Ethan's gonna fall or something. You know, you're just praying that he can find a way to get it out, and the film does that. But like I say, the stunts in this film were absolutely amazing. They are why you're going to see this movie, and they did not disappoint whatsoever. They're basically the highlight of the film. They make the film so amazing and so great when it comes to like the action part of the film, and you get every dime that you spend to see this movie in those two segment scenes, and they're pretty long too, so you get a lot of meat in those. And unfortunately, they used the plot around those two stunts. It kind of like they made the movie around that. But however, at the end of the day, they're amazing to watch. The final verdict. I have to say, the final verdict and the grading I'll get this film right now, I give it a meh. And it's only a meh right now, only because I want to talk about the first half of the film again. It was this, what made the film not enjoyable. It was very slow. It was a lot of dialogue. It was not pushing everything along. It was telling you what it was going to do, except showing you a lot of exposition. And it really slowed down the film and made the film somewhat not enjoyable. Then you get to the submarine scene, and the film actually becomes a very good film. And I mean, a very good film. The second half of the film, when it picks up at the submarine, like I said before, it's like a light. It just switches on and becomes a Mission Impossible movie. And it does make up what happened in the first half of the film. The two stunts with the submarine and on the airplane, the action, the characters that they were using to push the story along through dialogue and action, made it feel like a Mission Impossible film, to the point where you kind of somewhat forgive them for making you sit, you know, almost an hour and a half of dialogue and exposition and boringness, and not showing you what's going on with the film. This is what's going to happen, that's going to happen, rather than showing you that what was going to happen. They kind of made it up in the second half of the film. However, like I said, this is not a peak Mission Impossible film. I have a higher expectation of this film, but it's still a good film. I have a huge expectation for Mission Impossible films, and I felt like the second half of the film saves the film to the point where I can say it's enjoyable. That's how I feel about the film. It's a good film. It's 3 out of 4 of a full bowl, and I gotta say, you know, I had a lot of fun with this franchise. I don't know if you watched all the films. I highly recommend you do, especially for this film. They kind of piece everything together, as I said before. But let me know in the comment section below. What was your favorite Mission Impossible movie? Did you like this film? Do you agree with what I said too? And also, what's your favorite snack? Like, what do you like to eat while you're watching a movie? Let me know in the comment section below. And thank you for watching Nibbles and Flicks. I'm your host, John Freed, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Goodbye. And I'm going to eat some snacks. What do you think? Tootsie Roll? Or Hi-Chew? Let me know in the comment section. Bye.